Happy Monday. Happy week 8, the final week of summer session. Hope everybody's doing great. Welcome to the week 8 walkthrough. I'm on the home page, which has been converted to the week 8 overview and lesson. Here is the welcome to week 8 announcement. So let's review that, and then we'll go through the overview and the lessons as well. So welcome to week 8. This is the walkthrough. So as soon as this is as soon as I've published it on YouTube, then I will post it here. No Sully sesh this week. However, I do have student focused hours. My Sully hours are available. If those times don't match your schedule, then just message me and we'll come up with another time. Just a reminder that there are 2 anonymous surveys that are very helpful to me and the department in helping to make this a better course. So there is a course feedback survey similar to the mid-course one that you did on Canvas. And then there's also an instructor evaluation, again, anonymous, to give me feedback to know where I can improve. And that one is a Google form. Again, the email is not collected, so it is anonymous, and I hope to get lots of good suggestions. If there's things that you don't like, please give me suggestions so I can figure out how to do it better, what would work for you. And then if you have any questions, as always, please, you can reply to the announcement with questions. Week 8, I think it's kind of a tough week because we're ending with dying and end of life care. I have had suggestions in the past to move that up. But I think when you're looking at lifespan development, that it's really best to go in chronological order. And so that's why this is at the end. And so please take care of yourselves. I know families have experienced losses and grieving. And so please, it's one of the things I like about doing this part online is that if you need a break, you need to take a rest, you need to reflect, you have that ability. You could just stop, right? And you're not in a classroom. If you want to cry or yell or whatever works for you, then that's available to you. And here is your overview. Here are the 2 lessons that you have available to you. These are the things that we're going to explore. We're going to talk about hospice and palliative care, different spiritual, cultural customs, legal documents. What kind of legal things do you need to have taken care of? Ethical dilemmas, those kind of things. And then your assignments, you have 2 assignments. Reflections on loss and supporting someone experiencing grief. And we can look at those right here because we have the links. So this one, there are 2 parts to this one. Part 1 is for you to, and these are done after you read through the lessons or scan through the lessons and think about them. For this assignment, you're going to reflect on personal grief reactions and develop ways to support a grieving person. So understand that loss is loss. It doesn't have to be a person. It can be a thing. It can be a pet. It can be a job. It can be any sense of loss that you grieve. You go through a process. And we talk about in this lesson, DABDA, which is Kubler-Ross's model of denial, anger, bargaining, those types of things. And then finally acceptance, depression, acceptance. People go through that. We used to think that you went DABDA, but now we know that you can go DA and start over again, DABD, go back and they can also be out of order. They don't necessarily have to go in that order. So reflect on, for part 1, reflect on losses that you've experienced in your life. How did you react? Did you know they were coming, like anticipatory grieving? Is there anything special that specifically helped you through the time? Friends, support group, somebody bringing meals for you, crying, and just write at least a paragraph on that topic. And understand that the more you write, the more you reflect, then the deeper your thinking will be, the deeper the learning will be. And then that you've reflected on your reactions to loss and grief, you're going to reflect on how to support someone through their grief process. And so as healthcare professionals, regardless of what job we have, we are there to support people, support our patients. And so there are some different methods that we can use to support people. And so that's what you are asked to do. You're going to choose one method. There's, I believe I have four. Yeah, I have four listed there. And you're going to choose one of those from the list and describe how you could use it to support a grieving person, right? So you're going to identify the person you're supporting, can be anybody, and provide a rationale for why you chose that particular method. So you can choose to support any particular person that you'd like. You can choose to support whatever type of grieving or loss that they are experiencing. And you also need to provide a rationale for why you chose that particular method. So when we're talking about these different ways, and again, there are many, many myriad of ways, but these are four that you're being provided with here in this particular lesson. So you can acknowledge their loss. And it's also not to say that you might not do all of these or combination of these. We're just sort of using one at a time so that you can learn about them. So you can support a person who's expressing mixed emotions by acknowledging that relationships are complicated, that both caregiving and being sick are difficult, and that having mixed feelings is normal. So these are, excuse me, set to really apply in a death type of scenario, end of life type of scenario. But again, you could relate it to something else if you wanted. And so just acknowledging, just this must be really difficult for you. Excuse me, kind of going back to our therapeutic communication, right? Remember when we did that back in, was that week 4, week 3, week 4? Acknowledge it. Tell me how you're feeling. It must be really difficult to experience what you're experiencing. I've not experienced something like that because it shouldn't be about you all the time. It's good to add in some personal experiences if it feels right. Another way to help to support a person would be leaving room for silence. This is hard, especially for me because I can't shut up. And so if there are others of you that like to hear yourself talk, to sit and be with somebody, to sit with them and just be present. Maybe a gentle touch, on the hand, on the shoulder, but just being quiet, being with them. Sometimes that can be comforting. And it may feel awkward, but generally there's sort of a tipping point in it where it stops to feel awkward because you feel that the other person is acknowledging your silence and the meaning of your silence. And so I do like this one a lot. I've used this, believe it or not, I have used this many times, and it's worked well to help support the person. They've expressed that afterwards. Individualizing care, something as healthcare professionals that we do all the time or should be doing, is individualizing care. Things are not black and white. There are lots of shades of gray or other colors. Choose a color. And every person's grief experience is unique. It is their own. It is their personal experience based on all of their life experiences. And so you're being compassionate and caring and individualizing care is very important to them. They really appreciate that. And the best way, I think, to do that, or one of the best ways to do that, is to actually ask them, what can I do to support you? What do people in your particular culture do? Are there any rituals? Are there any, is there anything I can do to help you, to help support you during this time? Please just let me know. Also, maybe doing some homework, looking up if there's particular cultural practices or spiritual practices. That doesn't mean that the person is going to want to utilize those. So I always ask the person, how can I best support you? And then making room for tears. Surprise, surprise, I'm also a crier. Who knew? Everybody. I cry because I'm happy, because I'm sad, because I'm tired. I cry all the time. Crying is a normal, healthy response to grief. And sometimes other people's tears trigger your own, and that's normal. And it can be comforting. So making room for tears kind of goes along with leaving room for silence. But it's okay to cry. And it is often a very emotional release and really helps. I often will have Kleenex in my pocket or tissues in my pocket or have them somewhere nearby. Sometimes touch is appropriate. Just acknowledging I'm here to support you, just let it out. This must be really difficult. This is, cry away. And so sometimes people ask me a lot, well, can the nurse cry, or can the respiratory therapist cry, or can the PT, OT, ST, social worker, whomever, the healthcare professional is the doctor, the provider, can they cry? Like, we should be really strong and not cry. Well, I can tell you, working in labor and delivery and neonatal intensive care unit, that it's really hard not to cry. And that's okay. Crying is okay. I think it humanizes the process. It helps the family feel like you are a part, you do understand, you are caring, you are compassionate. And I've had people remember me months after their child died, because they felt I was caring, compassionate. They remember me holding their hand. They remember me treating their child with dignity, or whatever. And so, to me, that was just part of what I do as a caring person. But it can really, really make a difference. And so those are your choices. There is a rubric there. Follow the rubric, and you should be good to go. Okay, and then keep cleansing breaths. There we go. All right, so moving on to the next assignment. We went through those lessons, which I'll go back to in a minute. This one I like too. Week 8 activity, make your own bucket list. So I don't know if anybody's seen the movie The Bucket List. I happen to be a huge Jack Nicholson and Morgan Freeman fan. And they made a movie. I didn't realize it was so long ago, but that's almost 20 years ago, 18 years ago, in 2007, called The Bucket List. They play these two older men, two old guys, who happen to have terminal illnesses. They're actually in the hospital together. And they decide that they don't want to just lie in bed and just die and just give up. They want to do things and accomplish things. They start talking about things that they've wanted to do, and they they write this list, and then they decide to not necessarily sneak out of the hospital, but like they want to go on adventures. They want to live it up, check those things off their list, and have fun while they're doing it. And so what you're going to do is make a bucket list of at least 10 things, from most important to least important, that you'd like to see or do before you die. This can be anything. It doesn't matter if you have the money or the transportation or whatever. If you want to go to Egypt, that goes on your bucket list, right? And so make a bucket list. What do you want to do? I would like to go back to Ireland. I don't know. I would like to not have to work all the time. I would really love to travel. That's what I would really like to do. I have a lot of travel places on my list. I've actually completed a lot of my bucket list items, which doesn't mean I should be close to dying, but I have accomplished many of them. And then consider your list. Write a reflective essay explaining the most important things that you want to accomplish in your lifetime and why. So this is what you're doing. You're going to write this essay explaining why these things are important, why you want to do these bucket list things. And then you're going to analyze your bucket list in terms of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development. So we are in now at end of life. Well, I don't want to say end of life because that can be at any stage, but the late adulthood, elderly, the older person, right? Is at the stage of ego, integrity versus despair. So am I still who I am, who I believe I am, or am I just like despair and I just want to like sink in a hole kind of type thing? And so explain how completing your list would help you to positively resolve the stage of ego, integrity versus despair. And then be sure to describe and explain the stage in Erikson's theory. Include specific examples of how completing items on your list or not completing them, would affect how you resolve this stage. So for example, so you wanted to go to Egypt, you want to travel to Egypt. Well, maybe that's just not a reality or possibility for you, but is there something, could you go see an exhibit or something like that? I mean, if you don't get to go to Egypt, are you just going to feel so lost and you haven't accomplished anything or done anything useful in your life? Or is there some other way that you can accomplish that same feeling? And then keep in mind that how previous stages are resolved may also affect the developmental stage. So if you really didn't get through generativity versus stagnation, and you still may be stuck there because they kind of go together, that could be a problem as well. So include a detailed discussion of specific examples from your list. You don't have to address all 10 things on the list, but it would be nice. You need to include the list, excuse me, and then the reflective essay. So at least 350 words. So that's like a page and a half, 1 to 2 pages. So, so you need the original bucket list of 10 items, right? And then the reflective essay. And then included in the essay, there's points for Erickson, making sure that you relate it back to Erickson's development, and then your formatting and such, and that's worth 10 points. So I really, I enjoy this one. I enjoy reading these from students. And it is difficult. It's difficult to be in high school or in young adulthood and be thinking about dying. But it does, death can occur. There are chronic illnesses, infectious diseases. And so maybe we don't all get to work on our bucket list, but it's just, it helps you to think a little bit. And maybe you can help someone else through that stage. Okay, so we did that. We'll go back and look at that in a minute. Focus areas for the week 8 quiz. Yes, there is a week 8 quiz. Everybody's doing great on the quizzes, but please do me a favor. Please don't leave it till 11:30 on Sunday night, because then you run out of time. And then because you run out of time, you lose points. So please try to do that before. And this week, the quiz opens. It should actually be open now. It opens at noon, opened at noon, and it closes at midnight on Friday. So you have all week to take the quiz. I will try to stay on top of it so that if you need to redo and have a second attempt, that there's time for that. And so the focus areas, difference between physiological process of dying and psychological process of dying, because there's the bodily process as well as the mental process. Be able to define physician-assisted suicide, compare and contrast grief, bereavement, and mourning. Those different terms. There's outward, there's the feeling, there's the process, the phase of bereavement. We have bereavement leave. No definitions of hospice and palliative care. There's a difference. So many people think of hospice care as I'm in hospice, and generally it's a 6-month time frame. You can be reevaluated, but it is terminal, end of life care. Palliative care, on the other hand, is a part of hospice care, but can also be its own separate entity. And that is really keeping people comfortable. They may end up from going from palliative care to hospice care, because that's like an insurance thing. But they are two different things. And then be familiar with responses to grief, the stages and definitions. So we talked about DABDA, which is Kubler-Ross, and you'll also learn about Bowlby and Worden. And I would, sounds like this might be a good short answer question. So think about the stages and which one kind of speaks to you. And then be familiar with different types and uses for legal healthcare documents. So like the do not resuscitate post form, something like that. Okay, let's go back. Look at our journal entries. I have been looking at them. They are not graded. Do not fear. Nobody's going to lose tons of points, right? Because a journal is a personal thing. So even if you need to go back and add some pictures or links or something, that would be great. Make sure that you're answering all of the questions. And in some depth would be nice. And you should be able to get all the points. I will not, for example, in the first couple of weeks, if you left out things, I will not continue to dock points, moving forward, because, these are personal thoughts and feelings, as well as making it sort of into a study guide, which is kind of the whole point, as it takes the place of a final exam. But it's on me because I have been very, very behind in giving you feedback on them, and I apologize for that. But you guys are a great class, and so I wasn't worried about it, but you all may be. But I'm not worried about it. So I think everybody will do fine with their 80 points for that. So for this week, there is actually, excuse me, a poem analysis. So there is a death and end of life poem here. It's called Gone From My Sight. And so just a reflection, what does the poem mean to you? How do you interpret the poem? I understand this is an aesthetic component. They call it aesthetics, art, music, things like that. This is poetry. And it's how you interpret the poem, not what you think like other people think the poem means, but how do you interpret the poem? And then how do you imagine that you might use this to support a grieving person? You may choose to use it, you may not choose to use it. And so to provide support and then provide a rationale for your decision. So that is going to go in your journal. And then hospice uses it in one of their brochures. I also added a video in case you like to watch the video with some music. And so you have that available to you. And then the other journal entry is research 8.2, dying and end of life care. Research cultural or spiritual rituals and customs related to death or end of life care. In your journal, describe one of these that is new to you. So for example, if you are familiar with Hispanic tradition, maybe find, I don't know, Southern African American traditions. And so include the culture, the custom, why you chose it, and in what way you as a healthcare professional could help the client maintain their sense of cultural spiritual identity. So there's that. And so just a little note here on the announcement, you follow the full arc of human development, right? We went from prenatal all the way to death, birth to death, even before birth, right? And with it comes a deeper understanding of how you care for the whole person based on their development, right? You have that capability now to understand the difference between a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old and a 13-year-old and a 25-year-old. And so this final week, this last week, week 8, is about compassion, being present, honoring the lives that we serve. And so I just wanted to thank you for your engagement throughout the course, and we are going to finish strong. So I'm going to pause this for a minute and I will come back and we will go back through the lesson so that I can speak to some of the terms and the things that you will be learning about this week.